Hi, I'm Ann Delisi.
And I'm Chef James Rigato.
And in this episode of Essential Cooking, we talk with sommelier Chris Hunter about making the world of wine more approachable, the screw cap, and wines he would pair with musicians such as Miles Davis, Sade, and Tupac Shakur.
All right, so we are here, and our guest is Chris Hunter, one of my favorite sommeliers, and representing Vino Volo. It's been a weird year for wine, obviously, because a lot of our retail and restaurant locations have shifted gears, but nonetheless, Chris is still in the world of wine and representing wonderful opportunities for sommeliers that aren't necessarily what you'd expect to find. We have a young black male running one of the coolest wine programs in certainly at the airport, but definitely in southeastern Michigan. And after many visits and conversations with Chris, I find myself always walking away having learned something. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, welcome, and
thank you guys for having me on.
And of course. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm surviving in style.
How is the world of wine right now from your perspective?
I mean, obviously with COVID, it's a little strange, but it's really neat to talk about it because I'm seeing more intelligence in wine than ever before, which is great. It's good for me.
Why do you think that is?
It's just because more people are getting exposed to it, and access is such a neat thing. And so because of that, I see more people requesting certain varietals that are more, unique, and literally wanting to know more about what it entails, what the wine business entails, open to trying new wines. One of my philosophies, if you don't get out of your shell, you're just a nut. So it's okay. Like, it's okay to try new wine. Commercial wines are great. The big names are great. But for me, I want everybody to get outside of that box.
Yeah. Try
something new. People have like this limited experience, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, I hate Chardonnay because they've had one limited experience with it, right? So for example, it's like meeting somebody on the street from a different culture and having a bad experience with them and be like, oh, everybody from that culture is ridiculous. They're stupid.
Right.
And we do that with wine.
Yeah, we do. That's one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older, ironically, is like to ask more questions, expose your lack of knowledge. I love saying, wait a second, even if you just need a refresher, if you're like, it's okay to even ask, like, what is Chablis always Chardonnay? It's okay to ask that. Yeah. Like, no, I don't know any sommelier that is like, you idiot.
I know a few.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I should say I wouldn't ask any of the sommeliers that I know would be rude about that, But like to the average consumer, ask those questions. Yeah. Like ask, like don't just go along with it because there's a lot of code. I mean, you'll say some people will like even use abbreviations or like, oh, it's a GSM blend or whatever. You stop and say, what? What the hell is that?
It's on us too. That for me, like. In that perspective, it's on a somm as well.
Right.
Make it approachable.
Right.
I know so many somms where it's like I've had experiences where I've done like private tastings, and people will come to me after like, Chris, thank you.
When you're talking to somebody who's looking to purchase or looking to understand, I always say, educate, don't intimidate.
That's right.
It's juice, man. Yeah. You're selling juice. Calm down.
Yeah, it's juice, and that's what I usually say. Like anytime, like if there's a big table that orders, a Grand Cru or something, I'm like, this is some good juice you guys are drinking today. And it brings a lightness to the situation.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it's supposed to be out. It's supposed to be about a connection and making it approachable.
You're definitely a non-traditional sommelier.
Right.
Both in obviously background, but also in your approach. And that's why I love you so much in this industry and why you're invaluable is because you hold, the key to some doors that like people don't know exist.
Yeah.
But then also people in the industry like me, like you're invaluable because like, I can send anybody to you. I can send any geek or I can send any like person who's never had wine before and they're comfortable, drinking at your bar. That's
what it's about. In the end of the day, it's about connection. If we're just gonna like, being an image, like having the image of me as a black man with dreads, that's going to open so many more doors. Just when people see that. For example, you're like, my friend Chris, go to him and he's going to take care of you. I mean, that's such a neat feeling to have. It's a neat feeling for you to have to be like, yo, I have somebody that can take care of you.
Absolutely.
And it's a neat thing, for everybody, essentially,
Wine is absolutely available for everyone, and it's also a gateway to so much more education.
That's right. And it's on us as well. I always take full responsibility for that because it is. You're exactly right. It's always been a club of certain kind of people, and that's okay. But let's break these barriers down.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more.
Wine to me, like it's almost like it's a Trojan horse, because you're like, oh, I'm going to drink some wine and learn about wine. Not really. You're going to learn about history and geography and culture. Like, when you drink an Italian wine and you learn about where Umbria and obviously the different regions and the topography and everything else. Okay, well then you go drink a Georgian wine and then go drink a Burgundy, and then you learn about, okay, well then it's Piedmont influenced by the and then Champagne influenced by the English cider making. It just never ends.
It represents that history once you're tasting it.
Exactly.
It represents the philosophy of the people. And for somebody to experience that, like I always say, it's art. It's beautiful art. It brings people together. Wine is one of the things that, one of the only beverages that I've seen nobody. You can actually have a political conversation or religious conversation
peacefully,
without any fistfights.
Yeah. You came up. Your father was in the wine business, correct?
Yeah. So my dad got me into the business. I was going to school for business at the time, and it was like 2021, and he's been in wine for a long time, and I was always. I mean, he would let me try things, but I wasn't into it. And he was like, "Son, you want to come help me run this wine bar?" It was called Positive Vibration Wine Bar at the time. I was like, "Sure, maybe I should learn something about wine." At the time, I was a huge reader, so I just picked up a bunch of books. It was great. I had this knowledge, but it didn't really mean anything to me until I started experiencing, until I started going to wine tastings and being like, "Oh, this makes sense." I was reading about Burgundy from. Pinot Noir from Burgundy and now Pinot Noir from Oregon. And stylistically, wow, this is night and day. It's almost like a different style of grape. And so that experience was a beautiful thing. And then also, more so, just experiencing people in terms of where they're at in wine. And then the dialogue, having the open dialogue in terms of conversation. And so that kind of brought me in. And then in terms of my philosophy, in terms of, wow, something really special about this force, of wine. It's art, and this is how I can connect with people, and this is my gift in a sense, and that was given to me, and I'm like, this is such a beautiful thing. When that started, I was helping them do all elements of the business. Yeah, I got into sales, so that was really cool too, and then I transitioned I was a bartender for a while at Vinology. So I ran that bar for a little bit.
Beer. Mm-hmm. So yeah, okay.
Yep. And then now I'm at, and then I also on the side started doing a lot of private tastings as well. I got my Court of Somm certification, and then I went to Vino Volo, and Vino Volo is where I'm at right now.
Chris, what was the process like about getting certified? I think it's very mysterious for people that
is very mysterious.
Don't know. They're like, oh well, I don't know. What do you go through, and what is that process like? I always think that when you have to get something like that, it's harder than people think, but they don't know exactly what it is.
For sure. It is interesting because the best thing to do is to get into like groups and stuff to study, but you kind of have to do a lot of things on your own in terms of studying, which can be intimidating, but I think it's really special as well. You want to know all the regions, essentially. There's different forms, there's different certifications, there's different ways people can get into the business. So I don't want to limit in terms of the conversation, but yeah, there's let's just say there's a lot of drinking wine. It is very intense. There's a theory, and then there's the actually tasting, especially the blind tasting is crazy.
Yeah.
There's some days where I wake up where I'm like, I can literally blind taste anything, and my palate's probably the most open in the morning, but then there's some days where I'm like, there's no way I can't blind tasting anything.
Yeah.
So it really depends, and it can be really tough. They also go into the element if you worked at a restaurant too.
Yeah, I believe in all the things proper, obviously proper temperature, proper decanting, proper glassware. It's almost like a microcosm of some of the formalities that exist in the wine community. It's best exampled on the table. You can see by how you open a champagne, how you pour a taste, the different glasswares, the different, how thin is the rim of the, there's so many little tiny details just to physically getting a glass full of wine,
right?
That it's almost like a precursor of what you're going to deal with talking about different wine regions, meeting new sommeliers. Like there's a lot of fuss, on the surface level with wine, and then there's some of it's very intentional, very purposeful, and then some of it's also kind of crap.
It's kind of silly, and sometimes it comes from tradition, and it comes from, like, for example, so I was I was having dinner with this winemaker from France, and he was actually one of the first winemakers to put screw caps on his wine, and everybody there hated it.
Yeah,
was like, and I'm a sucker for old world wine. So I always talk old world wine up in a lot of ways, but in the sense of like innovation, it's not always that, And so they were just like, "Oh my God, how could you do screw cap?"
Yeah.
And he was telling me like he got all these letters because he used screw cap.
Yeah.
And I have wines that are like $250, $300 screw cap. It doesn't change, and it essentially helps.
Yeah,
a lot of vineyards.
Because corks, cork is notorious for, spoiling or basically introducing some kind of like, flaw into the wine. Like, cork is not all, it's not always.
It's cute. It's cute for the tradition, and I get that like people like to take it out. I mean, like, heaven forbid, I would always joke with my customers when I had screw caps and high end wine. I would be like, well, I'm working on like a little dance or something I can do for you.
Screw cap dance.
The screw cap dance, because, heaven forbid, it takes this tradition away.
Yeah.
And we can't have corks anymore. What are we going to do? How is it present? And so I think, and one of those things is I think we have to have fun with it because of that mentality, people feel like they have to have certain kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
And because of that has built a lot of strange, weird misconceptions about wine. It's like let's get into more of the texture and what is it doing? Where is it taking you mentally? Also, we're big music fans. What music is in the background right
Absolutely. Music is such a huge part of it. I feel like you could pair music to wine as much as you could pair food to it.
I honestly kind of want to do a wine tasting, like music
pairing.
We can set it up right now.
I was gonna say, I honestly feel like you like that's something that you would be so good at. I really feel like you should do. Like, you should even on your menu just put what song.
I've been thinking about it
Because like to me, like if I saw if I saw a wine I didn't know but I knew the song, I'd be like,
I gotta try that.
Yeah, I'm feeling this. And it could go both ways. I'm like, I might like that wine, and it was said like U2 next to it. I'd be like, nope, I hate it.
It's true.
I think it would give people like a different way to process
Absolutely
what they're about to drink.
Because
in a way that they never would have.
It does. It's so much, because a lot of times I use like music analogies to get people, I'm like, well, Pinot Grigio is Justin Bieber and Brunello de Montalcino is Bach. Like this is, so I don't want to necessarily say, because Pinot Grigio is not bad.
Not at all.
It's just simple.
It's a crusher.
It's a simple wine.
It's a graham wine. It's crusher.
Sometimes I don't want to always be like, trying this wine and I'm going to sit here and stand here and tell you all these qualities about the wine for 10 minutes. I don't care about that. I just want to enjoy it for the feeling of the wine.
Well, hey, honestly, to me, Pinot Grigio to me is the Coors Light of wine. There's nothing wrong with it. And don't like demonize it. But I actually have a hard time drinking red wine without food. And I just feel like my body doesn't like it. And the next day, I feel like I'm a little more hungover. Talking about texture, I mean, obviously not all red wines, but like a lot of the red wines that are popular in restaurants and bars around Michigan, it's a sauce. Right. It's literally like a sauce for your steak. Like that's the easiest thing that wine is sauce, right? It's a pairing for your food. Yeah, but if you give me a plain piece of baked Bronzino, I don't know if I could eat it. It'd just be like this too. There's nothing there. But if you gave me like an Albarino with it, okay, now we're talking. I can eat this whole piece of fish, go back and forth to the wine, and it'd be a study in the the minerals in the fish and the minerals in the wine. It'd be exciting. So one glass of wine changes a boring meal. So true. I think that I always look at wine as seasoning or as sauce or as a vinaigrette. It's like a component of the meal.
Exactly how I perceive it as well.
But like the white and the sparklings of the world are where I find the most, like, I think, thrill. Those are almost like the symbols or the high notes of the music. It's where you hear the most, like, it's the most intense. And then I feel like red wines and like the different kind of like orange wines that's where more of like your bass or more your minor chords, like they're important. And then obviously a full pairing would be the whole band together. But I don't want to sit down and just drink a big red wine ever, let alone start my dinner or my meal with it.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest crime I see in Michigan restaurants and catering. And I go in beautiful homes all over Michigan. I cook elaborate meals, and I'm like shucking oysters as people are pouring red wine. I'm like, listen, I don't know how to tell you guys this, but like, I need you to stop doing that.
I think you raised a really interesting point, and I think about this a lot in terms of the best approach for that. But it is, again, it's experience, right? So one of the things I do with a lot of my private tastings is that I'll do pairings, because and it goes back to perception as well. Like, so a lot of people perceive, especially in around here, perceive Riesling is automatically sweet.
Yeah.
Because they've had a bad experience with it, and Riesling is one of the most versatile varietals in the world.
And it's also one of the best varietals in our state.
One of the best food pairing wines in the world,
Yeah,
hands
absolutely.
down. And so people, it's like they have a, just because it wasn't, your sweetness wasn't balanced, right? You have a little bit of RS on there. If you all right, try this Riesling with this salty, cheese, or try this Riesling with this spicy dish.
Yeah.
Now talk to me.
Absolutely.
Black perspectives haven't always been centered in the telling of America's story. Now, we're taking center stage. Introducing NPR's Black Stories, Black Truths, a collection of Black-led stories from NPR's podcasts. Search NPR Black Stories, Black Truths wherever you get your podcasts.
In order to give people context as to what Rieslings to drink, I'm going to ask James to come up with a couple dishes, like you're going to make this and that, and you can tell us what Riesling would go with that well, so it gives people some perspective as to what would work and what wouldn't work, and maybe they'll try something new.
Right. Perfect.
Do you want to do just Rieslings in this brand?
I might actually open it up other than Riesling, but I will keep it in that.
I think because we were talking about that wine being...
definitely the first one being Riesling.
So we want to try to vindicate this wine just a little bit.
It's good. No, it's good.
I don't know why I care about the Riesling
I know,
so much.
no, it's good. This is good. Well, so, all right, so first pairing is nothing. What's the best Riesling to drink straight up? Like, it's like you and Riesling.
I'm actually going to give a shout out to Michigan right now.
All right.
And let's do Bel Lago Riesling.
Nice.
They're off dry Riesling.
Nice.
Trumbach would be my next one, Alsatian, and they're it's Grand Cru, but it's absolutely phenomenal. I would definitely, in terms of balance, oh man, they will balance out any dish. But what dish did you have?
Yeah. So let's say, and we'll do at least three with Riesling. So, and I'll give you things that I know would pair well with Riesling. So let's say I'm going to do a coconut milk green curry with grilled shrimp over some jasmine rice. What Riesling?
You have me thinking of ferment, just because it's a very similar varietal to Riesling, but I think it would, because it has this kind of creamy nature to it as well, it would balance out with that.
What's the
coconut.
wine?
It's ferment from Hungary.
Ferment.
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 Ferment is a great.
Spell that.
Furmint.
Ferment.
Ferment is actually very similar to Riesling, and so it can be like bone dry. They actually use it in a lot of their dessert wines as well.
Interesting.
And so just because of what you described, that was what came to mind.
Right.
But it's a very similar to varietal to Riesling.
Seared foie gras, toasted brioche, and a little bit of a Concord preserves.
That sounds delicious. Now you have me. I hate to be boxed in with Riesling. We have to do Moutard, and they have a Six Cepage champagne. Have you ever heard of Six Cepage champagne?
No.
There's 7 varietals that can actually go into the champagne. So this has Pinot Blanc, Pinot Gris, Messler, and then Pinot Meunier. And that is, from what you just said, that would be the most amazing.
I feel like there's definitely some ice wine or like late harvest kind of Riesling categories that I like to use in place of sauternes for the foie. Because obviously, when you do a foie on the menu, everyone kind of expects the fortified wine or the sauternes to come out. And I feel like some of those
sauternes is an easy,
of course, and it's classic. But I feel like the late harvest Rieslings, there's some that definitely hold up to the foie gras preparations. So I feel like in the world of Rieslings, where you're talking about, there's some that are frowned upon for the sugar. On the other end of the spectrum is some of those late harvest as a dessert wine or as a foie gras pairing are pretty killer too.
It's an interesting conversation because one of the things with even automatically and when it comes to pairings, when you're pairing especially like, sweet, for example, the dessert, the wine is actually supposed to be technically sweeter
than the dish.
And I, but there are some people that will swear by like jammy reds with chocolate.
Of course,
and I don't have a problem with that.
But no, I don't disagree though. Honestly, like Camus and chocolate is probably a great pairing. I think Banyuls and chocolate is a great pairing.
Right.
But I'm gonna go with another one. Let's do a potato crusted whitefish with a little touch of Dijon in the Beurre Blanc, like a little mustard Beurre Blanc. What Riesling?
Why do you?
Come on, because Ann said Riesling. You gotta stick with them.
Only because you started this, by the way.
It was my fault.
It's totally your fault because you said. People have written this off for forever, and I'm trying to get you.
I was just saying, man, you're kind of
trying to get you to vindicate the Riesling because you were saying that people should not write it off. And this is why.
What Riesling would you pair with? Potato crusted whitefish.
I'm gonna have to go with the Moselle. There's one that's right on the top of my head, and I can't. I'm gonna almost look it up because it's amazing. It's from Germany. From Moselle, and it would go amazing with that dish.
All right, so I want to do a couple of things. I want you to. This is rapid fire, Chris. You get 4 seconds.
Back on the rapid fire.
Yeah. So Ann, I want you to name 3 musicians, and I want Chris to name the wine that they are existentially.
Okay, this is an easy one. Miles Davis,
Brunello de Montalcino,
Diana Ross.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I want to go. Diana Ross is like I'm just gonna Vacaras, Diana Ross, Vacaras. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm not gonna. I mean, she's so dynamic, and that's why I think Vacaras is such a dynamic region, and just the way it balances out with the Grenache and Syrah, Mourvedre. I mean, yeah.
All right, take it.
Vacaras.
All right, what else?
AC/DC.
AC/DC.
I like it. I like where you're going. She's just getting wild over here.
Let's go with Stoltman Syrah from Santa Barbara, because I've been to that vineyard and a really cool vineyard, really cool people, and AC/DC. It's like the first taste when I think of it. I think AC/DC. Put it on.
All right, I got 3. So let's do.
We're gonna do Prince.
Yeah,
nobody said Prince.
No, Tupac.
Now we're talking. Man, now let's go. We got to go Cali. Man, I have one right. Nickel and Nickel. Tupac. Boom. Tupac. Nickel and Nickel.
All right.
Can we get down with it? Nickel and Nickel. I mean, just because I love Pac and like what he was, and Nickel is one of my favorite Cabernets.
Yeah.
To be honest, from you.
And it's kind of like they're kind of classic. Like some people would argue overrated, but like those that know would say absolutely not. Like Exposure's not overrated.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's a good one.
That's right.
That's a deep cut. Erykah Badu.
You guys have me really thinking. She's so soulful.
I know.
And she's big into like ancient Cometics too. I've been looking into that. There's this Moroccan Syrah.
Sirocco?
Yes.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with that for her.
All right. That's
actually. You're not gonna say Sade next, are you? Because I would say
I'm gonna say Sade. That's what you read my mind. I'm incredibly predictable, but
well, I think of Sade on Sundays, right? Like, but Sade is one of the most elegant, refined women. I have to go. Man, I'm thinking Burgundy.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Burgundy is classic,
but it's also like to me it has to be. I was just say it's Burgundy because I just consider Sade perfect, and I think like Burgundy. Like if my complaint of Burgundy is always like price. Because like there's great wines around the world for way less.
My complaint about Burgundy is innovations.
That's probably people's complaint about Sade. You don't always have to innovate.
Feminine divinity right there is Sade. I'm going to put some Sade on after this interview.
What's your death row glass of wine? Your last glass of wine on earth. What is it?
Wow.
I can tell you, I asked Madeline Trefan this once.
Hard, really?
What
did she say?
She said it would be a Northern Rhone Syrah and she would only smell it.
all we have is our moments here today,
Yeah.
gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
This must be
What's
the moment.
what's your last glass of wine? Like on Earth, last glass of wine. Like what is it?
Brunello. I have the pig Brunello. I'm Poggio Castellar, 2010. Chateau Margaux, I love too. That was kind of the cliche, the thing that came to my head, but I have to put it out there because I love it. So.
I'm gonna go out with a glass of Ruinart, Blanc de Blanc.
I love that.
Just like I could drink. It's the only thing I could drink every single day. I could be wildly hungover and I'll drink a glass of champagne.
It's my cheating. It's my cheating way in terms of pairing.
Yeah.
Because
of course.
It literally can go with anything.
Especially Ruinart. I mean, Ruinart to me is like that's my. I'll get a Ruinart tattoo for sure. I want to touch on real quick.
Yeah.
How do you recommend somebody that has no idea what they're doing with wine? How do they get into it? How does somebody learn more about wine? The most basic level. Obviously, buy books, go online, Google. That we already know that. But what's in this day and age? What's the best way to just start learning about wine?
Well, what I tell a lot of my customers or clientele, I always tell them to start with a region. So pick a region. Let's do Côte d'Rhône for example, and just experience that, and experience it. If you have a partner, say honey, what are you making tonight, or vice versa, and then go. I want to pick this wine.
Yeah, research a little bit. About
because once you spend time in a region, it's going to make you knowledgeable and want it's going to make you want to go learn other regions.
Yeah, what influenced this region? Who did they?
Yeah. So I say because wine could be so. I mean, it can be so vast. There's so much to it.
It's overwhelming. Yeah,
it can be very overwhelming, and so that's what I usually tell people. I say, start simple, depending on where their palate is as well, right? So if they're like, oh, I can only drink this or only drink that, then I say, okay, start with varietals from those particular regions, and then focus on that. And then once you have expanded, once you understand that, then you're naturally going to grow out of that. Your palate, by default, will naturally evolve.
You started tasting wine when you were how old?
I mean, I was like, in Italy, it's amazing. So they start their kids usually around like 6 or 7. And what it does, I mean, it's it's nothing. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit. But that naturally opens palates up. So because of that, they have exposure a lot earlier than we do. I mean, I started young too. Probably around 12, 14, having a little bit of my dad's wine, and then that's kind of opened me up. Everything in terms of our senses, we learn all of that. Through like pretty much 1 through 12. And so a lot of these things in your palate come up from subconscious memories, because essentially it's all about enhancing your perception. It's enhancing your perception. It's enhancing your senses. And so once you can do that, it's like, one of the things I tell people, it's like also, once you get into this world of wine, it's going to open everything else up for you. You're going to go to a market and you're going to think differently. You're going to start picking things up. You're going to start picking smells up right when you get into the market.
Absolutely. Or it's going to change the way you cook. It's going to change the way you view the world, where you want to travel. I mean, wine is such a gateway drug for culture and for life and for exposure.
Yeah,
it has completely enriched my life as a chef. The more every ounce of energy I put into learning about wine, it has completely returned tenfold in my career.
Our thanks to sommelier Chris Hunter for talking with us, to you for listening, and
we would like to thank La Marca Prosecco for their support. From the hills of Veneto, Italy, you can never go wrong with Prosecco, whether it's in a spritz or drinking straight.
Joan Isabella is our executive producer. Associate producers are Lisa Brancato and David Lyons. Production provided by Studios on the Pond in Rowan Nemisto. Original music by the Mallet Brothers. This is a production of Detroit Public Radio Station, WDET.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app and join us as we explore the world of food and how to cook it right here on Essential Cooking.